When a small private plane went down in the fog-covered mountains of Virginia on May 28, 1971, the nation lost its most decorated war hero turned movie star, Audie Murphy. At 45, the boyish soldier who had once faced an entire German company alone was gone. For 50 years, Americans were told it was a tragic accident caused by bad weather and pilot error. But newly surfaced evidence suggests the truth may be far more disturbing, that Murphy, who survived the worst of World War II, may have been silenced by the very country he defended. Audie Leon Murphy was born in 1925 in rural Hunt County, Texas, the seventh of 12 children in a family of sharecroppers. His father abandoned them, and after his mother's death when he was 16, Audie became responsible for his siblings. By age 8, he was hunting for food. By 10, he was picking cotton to keep the family alive. Biographer Robert Williams notes that Murphy's toughness and self-reliance were forged in those early years of hardship. Everything that made him a great soldier, endurance, focus, and sacrifice, was learned long before the Army. After Pearl Harbor, the undersized Texas teenager tried to enlist in every branch of the service. Rejected repeatedly for being too small, he lied about his age and finally joined the Army Infantry in 1942. What followed would become legend. Over 3 years and 9 major campaigns, Murphy rose from private to second lieutenant. He was wounded 3 times, killed or captured hundreds of enemy soldiers, and earned 33 medals, including the Medal of Honor. His most famous act came in January 1945, near Holtzwihr, France. With his unit decimated and German forces closing in, the 19-year-old climbed onto a burning tank destroyer and used its machine gun to hold off an entire company alone. When reinforcements arrived, he led a counterattack despite a leg wound. "I was scared and I was fighting," he later said. By war's end, his image appeared on the cover of Life magazine as the face of American heroism. Yet peace would prove more difficult than combat. James Cagney saw Murphy's life cover and brought him to Hollywood. Though he had no acting experience, his sincerity and military background drew audiences. Signed by Universal Pictures, he appeared in more than 40 films, mostly westerns. Film historian Katherine Zhang explains, "He wasn't a polished actor, but people trusted what they saw, a man who lived the courage he portrayed." Murphy's biggest success came in 1955's To Hell and Back, where he portrayed himself in the film version of his own autobiography. The movie became Universal's top-grossing film until Jaws 20 years later, but reliving the war on camera deepened his internal scars. Murphy suffered from what would later be recognized as severe post-traumatic stress disorder. He slept with a loaded gun, battled insomnia, and relied on sleeping pills. "I live in a nightmare, a real one when I sleep and a daylight one when I wake," he admitted. Friends remembered violent flashbacks and unpredictable moods, yet Murphy did something unheard of for the time. He spoke publicly about his psychological wounds and demanded better treatment for veterans. In 1955, he told a reporter, "Anyone who's been in as much combat as I have and says they don't have battle dreams, they're lying." Psychologist Dr. Matthew Sullivan says Murphy's honesty challenged an institution that denied the reality of psychological trauma. He was decades ahead of his time in demanding recognition of mental wounds. His first marriage collapsed under the strain. His second, to Pamela Archer, offered stability and 2 sons, though the ghosts of war never fully left him. By the late 1960s, Murphy's film career waned as westerns faded, but his focus turned to helping veterans. He visited hospitals, testified before Congress, and pushed for reforms within the Veterans Administration. Journalist Michael Thorne explains, "Murphy was hearing troubling stories, Missing funds, neglect, even rumors of unauthorized experiments. He began digging for answers. In 1970, he started researching a television project about veterans' experiences. What began as a creative idea quickly became an investigation. By early 1971, he was asking questions powerful people didn't want raised. On May 28, 1971, Murphy boarded a twin-engine Aero Commander 680 at Martinsville, Virginia, for a business trip. The pilot, Herman Butler, was experienced and cautious, with more than 8,000 hours flying. Still, 14 minutes after takeoff, the plane struck Brush Mountain, killing all 6 aboard. The National Transportation Safety Board blamed pilot error and bad weather, but aviation specialists have long doubted that verdict. Former FAA investigator Thomas Rawlings notes Butler was flying far too low, an impossible mistake for someone with his background. Parts of the wreckage were missing. Others appeared to have separated before impact. Metallurgists later found stress patterns suggesting mechanical failure before the crash. Then there was Butler's background. Declassified records showed ties to government contractors and Air America, a CIA-linked airline active during the Vietnam War. His employment history contained unexplained gaps. Those are red flags, says Intel analyst Sarah Jennings. They suggest intelligence connections, not a typical private pilot's resume. Witnesses also described hearing an explosion seconds before the crash. Testimony dismissed in the official report. Murphy's widow never accepted the findings. He trusted only careful pilots. He wouldn't have taken that flight unless he believed it was safe. For decades, the mystery lay dormant. Then, in 2018, the release of Cold War intelligence archives changed everything. Among thousands of newly declassified pages were surveillance reports showing Murphy had been monitored by federal agencies from 1969 until his death. Historian Eleanor Whitfield says the scale of surveillance was extraordinary. His phone calls, mail, even close associates were tracked. Former FBI agent Samuel Drake confirms Murphy was labeled a priority subject under COINTELPRO, the same program used against civil rights and anti-war activists. The question is, why a national hero? Documents suggest the answer lay in Murphy's final investigation. He had reportedly uncovered evidence that VA hospitals were diverting resources to secret defense research, psychological conditioning experiments resembling the CIA's MK-Ultra program. Murphy had gathered names, documents, and was arranging meetings with journalists from the Washington Post and New York Times for June 1971. In his briefcase, recovered but omitted from official inventories, were papers establishing a legal defense fund for VA whistleblowers. Modern re-examination of crash photos revealed possible tampering. Aviation forensic expert James Michaels identified tool marks on control components inconsistent with factory installation. He concluded someone deliberately weakened the elevator cables. It's a method designed to fail mid-flight while appearing accidental. A former Martinsville airport technician later gave a sworn statement describing 2 unfamiliar men working on the aircraft the night before the crash. They had credentials, he said, but they weren't our mechanics. The next day, after the crash, my boss told me to forget it. Adding to the unease, a retired intelligence operative, now in his 90s, testified that Murphy's death was part of a containment operation approved at high levels after he became a threat to classified programs. His claims matched wording in partially redacted government memos from June 1971 that referred to an operation resolved with expected conclusions. If these findings are accurate, they reveal a staggering betrayal. America's greatest soldier killed to keep government secrets buried. Historian William Porter calls it a moral crime. He says Murphy fought tyranny abroad only to be destroyed by secrecy at home. Murphy's son Terry has since fought for a new investigation. "My father survived the war, but not the truth. He was silenced for standing up for other veterans." Veterans groups have rallied behind him, seeing Murphy's story as symbolic of broader government neglect. In 2022, a bipartisan group of senators called for an independent commission, but the Department of Defense and VA have so far refused to release key files. Political analyst Margaret Chen observes, "If it were only conspiracy talk, full transparency would end it. The ongoing secrecy suggests something worth hiding." Murphy's life is now being re-evaluated, not only as one of bravery, but of conscience. His advocacy for wounded veterans, once seen as compassion, now appears as resistance. His openness about psychological trauma challenged the myths of invulnerability the military depended on. Psychologist Dr. Sullivan concludes, "His pain gave him empathy and moral clarity. That's what made him dangerous to people protecting unethical programs." Murphy's final fight, it seems, wasn't on a battlefield, but against the institutions he once served. More than 50 years later, the fog surrounding Brush Mountain is finally thinning. Each declassified page, each new witness brings the truth closer. Audie Murphy's life was defined by courage, from the fields of Texas to the front lines of Europe, from the studios of Hollywood to the halls of Congress. If these revelations hold true, his final act of heroism was the willingness to confront his own government. The orphaned boy who became a symbol of bravery may have died fighting once more, this time for truth. And as new evidence emerges, America may finally be forced to face the possibility that its greatest hero was also its most tragic casualty.